And until then, Rav Moshe was sitting like a piece of wood, not moving, and he had no life in his face. But then when he heard that the Alter Rebbe is calling him for a kafis, he opened his eyes, and some color returned to his face, and then right away he realized that he wants to go to a kafis. Good Vach, everybody. Peshana Rabba. This story is about Hakafis, and an incredible story about the Alter Rebbe. Let's do it. Yalla. Okay, so in Liozna, in the year Tav Kuf Samach Vav, do not ask me the English date. The first snow came very early. Already Cholamayit Sukkos, they had their first snow, and it was very, very, very cold. Tav Kuf Samach Vav. Thank you, Hanan. 1906, 1806. 1805. Okay. You could ask Hanan. So whenever you have a question what year it is, ask Hanan. And when they went to eat in the sukkah, they had to put on a coat and winter boots, and they had to keep on cleaning the snow from on top of the sukkah in order to have a kosher sukkah. The Shmini Atzeres on that year was on Shabbos, and the whole night snow fell. And the next day, in the day of Shmini Atzeres, the Alter Rebbe, he said that they should tell the goy, not as a command, because you're not allowed to tell a goy, deliberately. They should tell him that they can't be in the sukkah with all the snow. And he already, by himself, he understood what he has to do. And then he went to make Kiddush and eat to the Shabbos and Yom Tov in the sukkah. So now, most of the guests were Chassidim, and when they came to Liozna, they were very, very, very cold, and many of them, on their way traveling there, became sick. They got cold and they became very, very sick. Now, this is where the story begins. Heshana Rabba, the Alter Rebbe made sure that they would take out all the Sifrei Torah, they would roll them properly, and make sure that the place where it's sewn together is exactly in middle, in between the Atzechaim, and then he had someone in charge of it, and they would let him know when they're finished doing it. And that year, the Alter Rebbe asked Pinchas Reizis, who was a very big chassid of his, to be in charge of that. So now, when Pinchas comes into the Alter Rebbe to tell him that it's finished, he also told him that many people became sick because of how cold it was. So the Alter Rebbe put his head on his hands, and he waited for a little while with deep in thought. And afterwards, he opened his eyes and he said like this. It says about the Torah that it's Eish Das Lomei, right? The Torah is fire. So therefore, everybody should come Simchas Torah for Hakafis. Even the sick people, especially the sick people. Why? Because fire can battle fire. Right? You fight fire with fire. Yeah. And so the fire of Torah will take away the fire of the fever that they have, and the fire that they have from their cold, from their sickness. Now in Liozna there were two very old men who were misnagdim, but they had a lot of respect for the Alter Rebbe. One of them was called Rebbe Isaac Mechadish, because he was always Mechadish Chidushim. Another one was called Rebbe Naftali Zohir, because he was always careful about mitzvahs. He was always Zohir in mitzvahs. And they both lived in Liozna, and they learned their entire lives. Now, the first time the Alter Rebbe came to Liozna, he said a very deep piece of Torah, and they became very, very impressed. And since then, they always spoke to Alter Rebbe in Torah. Now, the thing is, though, that the Alter Rebbe used to go to the Magid, and at a certain point after he came back from the Magid, he started to say Divrei Torah of the Baal Shem Tov and of the Magid, and that from then, Rabbi Isaac and Rabbi Naftali, they kind of distanced themselves from him, but they still respected him. So much so that even when they said that even when certain Chachamim who were Misnagim said that you're not allowed to have anything to do with the Alter Rebbe, they actually wrote a letter of a Macha, they protested and defended him. Even though they were Misnagim, they knew how great he was and they defended him and said, that's already going too far. So now, Rabbi Isaac, who was one of these Misnagim, he had a nephew, his name was Rav Moshe Apziger, and he was a chassid. Rav Moshe was already older. He came with his two sons and one son-in-law. And when they traveled to Liozna, they became very sick. Reb Moshe, who was older, became very, very sick, until to the point where the doctor said that he doesn't know if he's going to make it. And the other one, and the two sons, and the son-in-law, he said that as long as they stay inside, they'll be okay. The night of Shmini Atzeres, right after Maidiv, Reb Pinchas Reishes, Reb Ephraim Michal of Shklov, and Reb Chaim Elio of the Brovna, they went to everyone to tell all the sick people that they should come to shul because they're going to fight fire with fire, like we said before. And everybody already heard about it before, from the time that he went out of, from when Reb Pinchas left the Alter Rebbe that first time. But they said it again just to let everybody know. And that night happened to be a very big blizzard, and it was full of mud, and it was super cold. But everybody went because they believed in the Alter Rebbe. And even those who couldn't walk themselves, people actually took them and carried them on their shoulders. So when they came to the house of Rebbe Isaac, they found so when they came to the house of Rebbe Isaac, Rebbe Pinchas and his friends, so they found that Rebbe Isaac was fighting with the sons and the son-in-law of Reb Moshe Apziger. Reb Moshe Apziger is saying you can't take him, right? You can't take him at all because it's a sakana. And they're saying, what do you mean? The Rebbe promised. So we know that because the Rebbe promised he's going to get well, the only way he's going to get healed is to go. So therefore, he's right now in a sakana. If you're going to take him, then he's going to get healed. And they see Rebbe Isaac, and they both come to Rebbe Isaac with their tainus. And Rebbe Isaac is sitting there, and he's wondering, listen, Rebbe Moshe is right. Alpi teva, you can't take him out. But then the Rebbe said that they're going to get healed. So now, Reb Pinchas in the beginning didn't know what to do. And then all of a sudden it hits him. He says, I am a close chassid of the Alter Rebbe. I was able to hear Ma'amarim from him, and I'm the son of a very holy man, and I'm wondering what to do. And these people who they live far away and they're much more quote unquote simpler than I am, they have such a great bitachon, and me, I should be embarrassed from these people. Right? They have so much more amunah than me, and to the point where he got lost in his thoughts, and one of his friends had to nudge him to get him out of his thoughts. And why did he nudge him? He told him because the doctor Rebbe Avram said that he has only a few more hours to live. So Reb Pinchas didn't even have a moment to think about this, and he heard that one of Reb Moshe's sons are calling to him and says, Tati, the Rebbe is calling to you to come to Hakafis. Tati, wake up. It's very important to go to the Hakafis of the Rebbe. And until then, Reb Moshe was sitting like a piece of wood, not moving, and he had no life in his face. But then when he heard that the Alter Rebbe is calling him for Hakafis, he opened his eyes, and some color returned to his face, and then right away he realized that he wants to go to Hakafis. So they put on him very, very warm clothes, and Reb Chaim Elio from the Brovna and his friends brought him, they carried him and brought him to the Alter Rebbe's shul. And it was very, very hot there, with tons of people, and there were so many sick people there. Some of them couldn't even have enough strength to sit. They were leaning on the walls, and people were coughing. And one of the strongest people in the town, whose name was Rabbi Yaakov Yeshaya from Chotimsk, he was 60 years old, and he was built like an ox, and he was the sickest of them all. And now, the way that the Hakafis of the Alter Rebbe worked was like this. They would daven mincha early on Hoshana Rabbah. Only a few Chassidim would be able to actually dance in what was called the Yechidus Hakafis of the Alter Rebbe. And the Alter Rebbe would go and dance with someone else, but holding up someone else's shoulder was a very great Chassid. Actually, I think the Rebbe also would do that, right? He would dance with the Rashag.
Yeah, there's brother one.
Right. So a similar, you can imagine something similar with the Alter Rebbe and one of the big Chassidim. And it was called the Hakafis Yechidus. Why? Because then there was a scholus of the makif of the Yechida, right? That's right, because the Yechida of the Neshama, which is known, it doesn't really reveal itself in the Guf, only in a way of makif, only in a way of surrounding. And that was a point where there was a connection a special connection to the Yechida. Now, whoever was at this Hakafis and saw the Alter Rebbe's face during the dancing, they also felt that the Kedusha that was there. And the Pinchas Reza says that the first time that he was ever at this Hakafis Yechidus, he felt an intense transformation, and he felt like an entirely different person. And he was able to imagine to himself how a Yid felt when the Beis Hamikdash was around, when the Beis Hamikdash was existing, when Yidden would see the revealed Shechinah in the Beis Hamikdash. And only a few people were able to come to this Hakafis, and if somebody was there once, he wasn't able to go twice, except for very, very few people who were able to go again. And after this Hakafis, the Rebbe would go to the Sukkah to make Kiddush, because in Chutz La'aretz, right, we eat in the Sukkah on Shmini Atzeret, and then they would have a Hakafis with all the Chassidim. So now, this is where the Alter Rebbe did some holy magic. He called in, when he went to go into the Sukkah to make Kiddush, he called three people: Reb Michal Aaron of Vitebsk, Reb Shabsai Meir of Vishenkovich, and Reb Yaakov of Semilain. And when they came into the Sukkah, the Alter Rebbe tells them like this: You, Michal Aaron, you're a Kohen. Shabsai Meir, you're a Levi. And Yaakov, you are a Yisrael. I need a Beis Din of three people, and I need a Kohen, Levi, and Yisrael. And therefore I chose you. You'll be the Beis Din. When you hear Kiddush from me, I want you to say Amen after every bracha. And when you say Amen, have in mind that everything that I am concentrating on, all the kavanas that I'm having, and all the things I'm requesting, should happen. You should say Amen to whatever I'm requesting. And before he started saying Kiddush, he said that they should bring very, very big vessels of wine. So Alter Rebbe made Kiddush, and he took whatever was left over of the Kiddush and put it inside one of the vessels, and he told the three people to mix this wine into all the other wine, so that his shirayim should be mixed into all the wine, and that all the sick people should drink from this wine to have a refuah shlema. And they also went up to the Ezras Nashim to give to the women who either didn't have children yet or who had miscarriages up until then. And so, as quick as thunder, everybody found out that whoever takes the Keshel Bracha will become healed, and everybody was waiting for this wine. And these shluchim of healing, they got the strongest people to be able to go and give out all the wine. And so because they were strong, and they'll be able to make a seder and make sure no one's pushing. And it says all the names of the people over here. I guess these were known brutes, not brutes, chas v'shalom, but very known to be very strong people. And when they came into the shul right away, when the three people from the basin came into the shul with their strong chevra, it became very quiet. And everybody knew that these are the three people that the Alter Rebbe chose, and they all waited respectfully. The Beis Din with their helpers went to the bima, and Rebbe Yaakov of Semilain said over what the Rebbe said, word by word, and he added, until here is what the Alter Rebbe said, but I'm going to tell you something else that's negea to our inyan. It's an accepted thing. It's a davar mekubal. It's a known thing that in order for a bracha to happen, the person who makes the bracha has to fulfill two conditions. Number one, he has to believe in the bracha of the person who's made. He has to believe in the bracha with simple emunah, without any chachmas. And number two, he has to be given over to the person who's giving a bracha in all inyanim. In other words, since the Alter Rebbe is the one who gives the bracha, you have to be given over to what the Alter Rebbe said. And even though everybody heard what Rebbe Yaakov Semilain said, they asked that the Michal Aaron HaKohen, who had a louder voice, that he should say it again, so everyone should hear. And afterwards, they started giving out this l'chaim to everybody in an organized fashion. And afterwards, the Alter Rebbe came to Hakafis in the shul, and in those Hakafis, the Alter Rebbe said the Alter Rebbe started with the first pasuk of Ata Haresa, and he said the last pasuk also of Kimitin Tetzei Seira, and all the way through all the seven Hakafas. And the next day, everyone spoke about the big nace, because every last person who was sick was healed. And the doctor Avraham said that by certain people who were sick, he pashat tzat ches hamesim. They were at door's death, and they pashat came back to life. and he already gave up on them. And Reb Moshe Abtziger, who we said in the beginning was the one who they were fighting if they should even bring him because of how sick he was, his the way he healed made it that it made such a big impression on his uncle Rebbe Isaac, who was a misnaged, that he became a full chassid of the Alter Rebbe. And he says why? Because the simple emunah that I saw from my nephews, from my great nephews, really made a big impression on me. And if I hadn't seen it, I would have never believed such a story. And Rebbe Isaac, it says, naturally was someone who was a very, very deep and very deep learner, and he would always learn. And from then he didn't only learn Nigla, but he also learned Chassidus. And whenever he heard any type of Torah from the Alter Rebbe, he would say it over many, many times until he understood it very, very well. Anyways, this is the story. It was much longer than I thought it would be. But it's an incredible story. We see Emunas Chachamim that we should have a refuah to all our whatever machos we have, whether they're spiritual, physical, anything that we need. And we should have the ultimate refuah of Mashiach now. We should be able to have a kafis with the Hilui Shechina, Mashiach now, and yeah. All right, good tvach. Guys, you gotta check this out. This is insane. Danny, how are you?
I'm doing amazing.